For millions of adults in South Africa, the opportunity for education has come only once. Like a bus in the middle of the night, for many it came and went unnoticed. For countless others, the bus broke down soon after the journey had begun. Only a handful of passengers, after walking long distances and hitching rides on other forms of transport, reached their destination, education. For the rest, no other buses have come. And today, some 15 million adults, roughly 43% of all South Africans, are unable to either read or write. Illiterate or not, all adults accumulate life skills, and many others have basic formal education at various levels. Stranded at desolate stops on the route to lifelong education, the majority wait. Not for another lone bus, but for a system of education where there is an endless stream of many buses heading to a variety of destinations where adults may get on or off many times according to their choice or need. A community of some 5 million people, farm laborers and their families have for generations been locked away on commercial farms, trapped in a feudal relationship with the all-powerful farmer. Designed to ensure a source of exploitable labor, this situation denied farm workers access to education and opportunity that would offer a way out of the self-perpetuating cycle of dispossession. Historically, fully subsidized by the state, farm schools have been owned and controlled by the farmer. Only 21% of these schools go as far as Standard 2, with a mere 3% offering education beyond Standard 5. Some 430,000 children currently get their education through this system.
Children who come from quite a distance, if a child travels at 20 kilometers, no transport, dusty area, rainy, all weather conditions, besides all this, they will make it to school. And therefore, these children, they really need education. Against poor background of their families, but they still make it. Farm schools are not given a priority. They always come last, and that frustrates. We still have combined classes, of which a proper foundation cannot be laid down. And then most teachers will acquire information from their colleagues in the townships. And that's embarrassing. Until the department comes down to the rural areas, farm schools, there's still quite a bedlock. Things like electricity, these schools are not supplied. They're without electricity. But with such equipment, they become useless. But what are they doing about it? What direction have they taken so far? So far we have seen nothing.
If we allow the rural schools to be the last of our priorities, then as a nation we should stand condemned. What we need to ensure is that the poorest of the poor get the best affordable facilities that they can get. Recently, the South African Agricultural Union has threatened that in terms of the minister's wishes regarding Model C schools, that they will rather close the farm schools down. Now, this would be a travesty of use of taxpayers' money. A lot of these schools were built by farmers and got rebates from the government. I think that it's an unnecessary kind of power struggle when farmers want to indulge in that kind of threat-making process.
For Moses Makoba, working the farms as a heavy-duty driver for the past 20 years, the bus of educational opportunity has long passed him by. The primary concern for him and his wife Miriam is now the education of their 6 children. As if acknowledging their struggle, fortune has smiled on the Makoba family. In spite of improbability, their eldest son Azariel has beaten the system and is currently studying for his BSc engineering degree at Cape Town University.
I feel proud because you're going to get a better life because he's going to help another children and other people and show them the education, where education going to. And education, what is the life of education? And education is a good life. And so I feel very happy going to help me Sometimes I just haven't got a good education, so I feel proud for it.
I don't think I got better education. I think I had very good basics from primary, but when I went to high school, everything went very bad because we had a lot of violence and all that. I was doing my matric, and it was the year when President Mandela was released from prison. And it's like we didn't attend from February till September. Now, it was then by October that we've been told that we're going to write the exam, and that's how it happened because we couldn't study. But okay, anyway, I managed to pass. It was then in 1992 that I came to UCT. I started my BSc.
Ke thabile haholo ha ile mona a ile sekolong hobane ke ne ke sokola ka yena. Ke hopola ka tsatsi le leng a ya sekolong ke sena tjhelete. La ga dikolo di bula le June ke mo fa 60 rand ho tloha mona ya Cape Town e le go sankile card ya ho ya ntho ya basic reward. Ke sena tjhelete ya pocket money ka mo fa 60 rand. Empa ne nga khotsofalla ka bona hore ke yena ngwana ka go o rata thuto. Ke thabile haholo bane ke mo tla fumana bophelo bo botle. Ene o tla khona le ho thusa bana babo ha sa
I think those from private schools, they are doing very well because they had everything, all the facilities. And those from townships, it's like we didn't have facilities, so it's a little bit difficult, but it gets better when you get to your second year and your third year, you come to the same level.
Mkhobo, the one in Cape Town. Yes, that's our product. That's our product. Was one of the best students, very intelligent child, and not well-baked family. But they managed to make it. So from the farms, we can still produce good leaders.
We come from different places, and so you get involved with each other, and that's where you learn the culture of other people, and you learn to know how other people live in their areas.
Well, education is a very nice way to the life. Because if you got no education, I think it is not a good life if you got no education. Education is the best life thing. Myself too, I was just want to be something like, about education, about sub A up to standard 1. After all, I go to Heilbronn district, I make my standard 2 there and go back again to Vifeld, I do my standard 4. That's now my father got no money again. And then after all, just sit down and try to correspondence at the Lazim College, but just only the money was, I haven't got the money again. That I start working now.
Le nna thuto ne ke rata haholo hobane ke la ka fela standard 4 jwale batswadi ba ka bana sena tjhelete ho nkisa sekolong le abuti wa ka o mongwe teng a ke e leng teacher bona mona sekolong sona sa Panfante sena sa mona sa sekolo le ena o la sokola o ka ya sekolong ka baka la tjhelete ntate ne sa dula Freestata bona ka nna Paris street sa Paris na re kisa dikgomo o ka khona ya sekolong jwale nna wa tiki dule bana ba sena tšhelete hore nka ya sekolong empa le nna ba ka go ka moggo ke leng ka teng ka bo fokodi baka ba tšhelete ke batla go ba fihlelle mo ba batla go ithuta go fihla teng o molomo ka mogga ka ithutang ka teng ha ke na le hona ke tla ba isa sekolong bana ba bone mohlala ka buti wa bona ya university ba tla nka mohlala o yena.
I have to try to make some night schools, but I haven't got the money because 5 children to take them to the school is a lot of money. Now I can't make education again.
They wanted to have evening classes, but we said It's impossible. You cannot use a candle. Such big rooms with candlesticks. No. So until the school is electrified, then really that will open so many channels. Parents obviously will come in the evening. Kids who could study in the evening. So I personally, I'm staying right on the farm. I could monitor that. I could still further my education in the evening as well. Join them, encourage them, set the pace for them.
From rural to urban, in today's world, all socially essential knowledge is encoded in written form. If you cannot read and write, you cannot crack the code, and you are denied access to mainstream means of sustaining a livelihood. Literate or not, on their journey through life, all adults accumulate life experience and ability, and adult basic education and training is the process whereby adults can get back on board, where the adult learner can be taken to a point where they can participate in the formal economy in accordance with their aspirations.
If you want to learn, you must come to school. The school make you to be clever. You can't become stupid anymore. You can write your secret letter. You can't ask somebody, please do this to me. Please, you can send this to me. No, you do it by yourself. You know, in the work, I deliver the letter. So I know when I just deliver the letter now, I know the name now. I can do it this way. Sometimes before, I don't know what the name. So I know what number, what the name, I know now.
What I can say to them is that, like, if they have some problems, one thing for sure is, like, my motto is perseverance is the mother of success. So they should just persevere. Everything will come okay.
We have a large population which we assume is uneducated. In fact, they're not uneducated at all. They're at different levels of education. And the recognition of prior learning will allow us to identify the levels and to identify possibilities for people to take that learning further.
Recognition of prior learning is fundamental to establishing a standardized national system for evaluating ABET programs and learner progress. Having enormous potential to impact on a learner constituency scattered over vast distances, distance education has yet to be effectively harnessed for the provision of adult basic education and training in South Africa. Utilizing television, computer and radio networks, much of the communications infrastructure is already in place.
Bavumelekile ukuyofundela amakhono athize abalulekile emsebenzini kanye nasempilweni yabo.
In 5, 4. Allowing for flexibility, this system is ideally suited to the circumstances of the adult learner, who, having other commitments, needs to study in their own time and in their own community environment without being removed from employment for long periods. Innovative radio and television programs are in production, but to be successfully implemented, a well-designed country-wide network of learner centers with active student support systems needs to be established. In the drive for a culture of open learning, a society where all people can have lifelong access to learning and knowledge where and when they need it, distance education has a major role to play.
Stories to tell about the big city. As a child, you may have been taken to Johannesburg for the first time by your parents, older sister, or brother.
Without the fundamental infrastructure of electricity and community resources, however, this enormous potential is totally undermined. Endorsed out of mainstream society through decades of social engineering, the rural poor, communities of unemployed women, young children, and the aged are a neglected constituency further afflicted by the injustice of illiteracy. Adult basic education and training is not an end in itself. It comes alive only in relation to the process of solving the problems of daily life, of eating, drinking, and the need to secure a livelihood and generate income. The index of success of any program is the measure to which it makes a material difference to people's lives. The Zamani Adult Literacy Project reaches out through 17 literacy centers across the Transkei in an attempt to establish a cornerstone for development of these marginalized communities. The non-governmental sector accounts for roughly 10% of adult basic education and training provision, the means by which people can begin to take control of their lives. At church, you know, somebody offers you a hymn book. You can't read, so you can't sing. You just shake your head. And sometimes it's embarrassing because some people don't know that you are illiterate, so you are exposed.
Ndibuhlungu kakhulu. Yes. Ngoku xa ndilapha esikolweni ndizifumana ndikhanya kuba ndingumntwana wasezingubeni emnyameni. Ngoku ndilapha kukho into endizibonayo ezintle bendingaziboni. Nokuba ndihleli kukho into ngathi idedi lapha emahlweni kumi kuba bekumnyama ndigutyungelwe ingubo. Ngoku ngathi ingubo ishenxile. Ndiyayibona nento uba ibirongo yandawo bendikuyo. Ingathi kulapho kuhle kule ndawo ndikuyo kwesi sikolo sabantu abadala. Kumnyama ummeme wami wandikhwitshilula ingqondo ndisemnyameni ndingazi into ngokubhala aqonda bakho ndingumntu wasemnyameni nabazali bami.
This location, they said that they are not interested for their wives to be educated. Their wives must remain uneducated because they're Joburg, they've got other women staying with them. Now they doesn't want their wives to go there. They want to remain here because if they are educated, they are going to know there's something happening there at Joburg.
Ndifuna ukuqhubeleka nisi. Enkosi ndivumele. Abaphathi bami besenzele umunyenyevu. Ndifuna ukuhambela phambili. Ndishanqele kule ndawo ndikuyo sibhekise ngaphambili. Ndingawufika nakulesihlanu ibanga, nakulesithandathu inkosi xa indipha amandla.
Ndinomyalezo othi abantu bangafundanga mabazame ukuya esikolweni kuba thina siwubonile umahluko wokungafundi nabafundileyo.
We need to strengthen the capacity of the NGO sectors in providing adult education programs on a larger scale. They have been accustomed to providing programs on a fairly limited and small scale. We now need to strengthen them, and one of the advantages is that the NGO sector can provide services at relatively lower costs. They don't need the same kind of huge bureaucracy that governments need, and they're reasonably flexible. And so they need to be brought in a very active way to enable us to tackle this task.
The impact of a little learning on people's lives is a small miracle easily taken for granted by those with education. A second major provider, accounting for roughly 45% of all provision of ABET, is the industrial sector. Some 35% of the economically active workforce in South Africa, having education levels below Standard 4, is considered functionally illiterate. To yield higher levels of productivity and enable industry to compete in a global economy, an integrated education and training system is required, geared to generating a workforce that is adaptable and receptive to ongoing training and further learning.
Well, the foundation for further learning is the ability to communicate, read, write, speak, listen and understand, and to compute, numeracy moving into computation. Without that foundation, it's very difficult to train and retrain people in terms of the dynamic and ongoing need we have for innovation in the workplace. We've got an imperative which says that in order to compete, you have to introduce new technologies. You have to critically re-examine the way in which work is undertaken. The unions simultaneously have a greater and strong need to participate more effectively in decision-making in the workplace. And there is a need amongst the members of their workforce for the kinds of skills which enable them to continue to participate in the new work organization and to master and be able to use the new technologies.
Underground work has never been popular, but for those with little or no education, it is often the only option. In line with international management trends, to generate a more productive and flexible workforce, the Genmin Group is committed to developing a functionally literate workforce by the year 2000. To this end, within the mining sector, Genmin has become a leader in adult literacy work and the development of program materials.
For lunch. All of you? The only sport I like is tennis. I studied survival English. After that, I do conversation English. In conversation English, I've learned more. I've learned how to bank, how to travel, how to book at hotel, and many more. And I've learned how to be polite to each other and how to talk to each other and how to respect my supervisor. So
I say that education is very important because it gives you promotions at the work. Is the key of the life.
I feel all right working underground because of lack of jobs so in South Africa. So we've got no way to go. So we better just go underground because at least the end of the month you've got something to protect your relative, by the way.
For our members, it's more a question of being able to find work, whether it's in the same workplace, in the same industry, or in a different industry, maybe even in a different part of the country. So the notion of adaptability and flexibility goes much wider than what employers have traditionally raised. Those people who are unemployed because of the absence of a welfare system in South Africa are generally supported by those who are employed. So the extended family and what's known as the economies of affection actually plays a very big role. And there are quite a few of our members who are on the brink of unemployment all the time because of the kind of changes that are taking place in the economy, the collapse of certain industries. And so our members are stressing the importance of being able to move from informal sector employment to formal sector employment. What we're proposing is the establishment of a national qualifications framework based on nationally agreed standards, which would make it possible for any person, adult or youth, male or female, to get recognition for the learning that that person gets, and that recognition would be accredited anywhere by different employers, by other educational institutions in different parts of the country and so on.
I think my future is that it's not so much future. I look after my children until they finish their education. That's my future.
In the future lies the vision of a society where all people have lifelong access to learning and knowledge where and when they need it, a principle central to the human resource development needed for economic growth in South Africa. With some 15 million adults unable to read and write, and 35% of the country's workforce functionally illiterate, the provision of ABET, currently reaching some 200,000 learners, is seen to be totally inadequate, the sector remaining a poor relative existing in the shadow of formal education.
One of the high-ranking reconstruction and development programs is, in fact, the launching of a national adult basic education initiative. How this will be funded still has to be worked out, and I think the sector's hopes really depend on how, through the RDP financing mechanisms, more money can be allocated to adult basic education. And this is why I believe that we need to go beyond government in terms of ensuring that adult basic education doesn't drop off the edges. There are things that government needs to do, and these would include the setting up of a national qualifications authority, ensuring the development of a national curriculum, national standards, accessing resources like schools, colleges, contributing towards the training of adult educators. Then one can bring in non-governmental organizations, the private sector, the union movements, and so on, and in this way unleash resources that normally would not be available. If the adult basic education sector does not do this and continues to depend on the windfall from government, then they're going to have to wait a long time.